This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Well, Kurt, thank you for sharing that story with us today. Really appreciate that. Not easy. But we do also have some fan questions. Are you ready to jump into those?
Let's get started.
Okay. First is from Jeremy Priest, top guy at Jeremy_Priest. He says, how tough was it, or what was going through your mind when you made the decision to leave? We've already talked about some of this, but it was extremely tough, right?
Yeah, it was hard. I never wanted to leave. I knew I had to for my own health, for my own frame of mind, for my own peace. And so I didn't have a choice. If I would have stayed, I honestly believe that I wouldn't be around right now.
Yeah. Luke from Eastern Iowa at Sputnik_Rising asks, and this is a little bit of a fun question. Before you were signed by TNA, did you ever consider any work outside of wrestling, like taking back the old sports anchor position or perhaps doing some more pizza outlet commercials to get your face back out there?
No, I didn't want to go back to that. I knew I still wanted to wrestle.
Sure.
I wasn't done with the wrestling bug. I absolutely love pro wrestling. It's my biggest passion, more than the Olympics, more than amateur wrestling. I just had so much fun doing it, and it was such a huge challenge for me. It was as challenging as it was winning an Olympic gold medal, especially when you want to be an upper tier talent and make a lot of great moments for the fans. I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's why you do it.
There you go. Andy's Always Right is up next at Andy Paul Rules 1. And he says, I remember a quote from Paul Heyman saying the WWE's release probably saved Kurt's life. Do you agree with this statement, Kurt?
Yes, Paul was exactly right. I really think that I wouldn't lasted that much longer if I didn't leave in 2006. I honestly believe that Vince felt that too. And, I was really surprised that they didn't want to release me when I asked for it. But I do understand that Vince felt I was his responsibility, his mess, and he wanted to clean his own mess up. And I really believe when you're part of the company like that and he cares about you as much as he did about me, he wanted to make sure I was okay. So he always had people on me, and that's why he had me drug tested all the time.
Sure.
That's why Dr. Black hit me for the drug test. Vince was showing me that he cared about me, wanted to make sure I stayed clean.
That 90s Wrestling Podcast, you can find him on social media at 90s Wrestling Pod, says, I've heard the road schedule was one of the factors leading to Kurt leaving, but was being put on ECW another factor in why he left, or was that completely irrelevant?
Well, it had some factor. I mean, like I said before, I went from SmackDown to Raw to SmackDown to ECW. I felt like they didn't know what they wanted to do with me, or they didn't really care about me. But I was wrong. I think that Vince was just trying to, fix the Band-Aids that were occurring in the company. When Batista went down, he needed a top talent, and he knew he could count on me because I never said no to Vince. ECW, when he started the company, a lot of other talent probably told him, I'm not doing ECW. I'm not gonna leave Raw or SmackDown for ECW. I said yes. So, Vince always knew that I would say yes. And I think that's the reason why he did pick me quite a bit.
Pro Wrestling Defined at Pro Defined says, was TNA already on your radar before you left WWE? And if so, did seeing some of the likes of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, etc. there make his decision to leave WWE easier?
Well, TNA was definitely on the radar. I started looking at them probably 2 weeks before I left the company.
Okay.
Started watching the programming. I watched it here and there in the past too, but what intrigued me was AJ and Joe, and Sting. They had some great talent there, and I knew if the company, if I made a decent deal with them, that I could work for them and be able to work the schedule that I wanted to work, and that was important to me. That's what I needed. So they were on the radar at the end before I quit. And I did reach out to them right after I got released by the WWE.
Okay. Liam says at EVZ_Liam, if TNA had never existed after you left the WWE, would the UFC have been the next step in your career, or did you have another career aspiration outside of pro wrestling?
It would have definitely been UFC. I don't know how well I would have done because of my broken neck issues. Knowing that I broke my neck 5 times, my upper body strength is horrendous. It's horrible. I have a lack of circulation going down my arms. I lost 4 inches in both arms from my atrophy from my neck. And I don't know how well I would have done. Now, if I would have done it right after the Olympics, I would have kicked ass. But I did go to UFC in 2006. I went to TNA. I signed a deal with them, and Dana White flew me into Vegas to meet with him. And I told him, listen, I'll do UFC, but I have to do TNA too. And he said, you can't do both. I can't have you do both. So I thought I was going to be able to go part-time in TNA and fight in UFC, which was completely crazy. I'd have to be out of my mind to do that. And Dana was right. There's just no way I could have done it, not be at my best. So, but he did offer me a contract, which was really cool. And I'm sorry, when I told him I signed with TNA, he said I couldn't do it. So the contract didn't stand.
Didn't matter.
He said, when you're done with TNA, call me. And I did. I did a few years later when I was thinking about quitting TNA when the whole situation happened, bad situation where I wanted to get out of the company, and Dana offered me another deal. But I knew at that particular time too that I couldn't fight. There was just no way that my body was going to hold up. I was getting injured so much in pro wrestling, and the lack of upper body strength would have really affected my fighting.
Sure. Ted the Hillbilly Heel at Hillbilly Heel says, after you had been in WWE for a bit, did you think you would ever leave, or did you see yourself just transitioning to a backstage job?
I never saw myself leaving when I started WWE. I knew I would have a nice long career there, longer than I did, unfortunately. But I was never planning on taking a backstage role, even though I did when I retired. I just thought that I would wrestle for 20 plus years, make enough money to retire on and not have to worry about anything. So, not a lot of the top tier guys take producing jobs or take jobs backstage. So some of them do. And I was one of them. But for the most part, the best coaches, the best producers are usually the ones that didn't quite make it to the upper tier level. They seem to always be better coaches.
Yeah, no, you can see that in some of the names of the guys who are coaches now. It's not necessarily, it's not the Undertaker and Bret Hart and Shawn. Now Shawn, he's getting involved a lot and has been involved a lot with NXT and helping develop.
He's one of the exceptions,
but he's one of the exceptions, absolutely. The third man at Jay Bracken 23. And I think we know the answer to these questions at this point, but I'm still going to ask it for him. Was it hard to leave WWE, or at that point, do you know you had to? Was it a matter of life and death?
I knew I had to. I had to get out that particular time. I knew if I didn't, I wasn't going to live much longer. And I had the backup plan. I knew that I would contact and reach out to TNA. I just didn't know what kind of deal they would give me. And fortunately, they gave me the deal I wanted.
There you go. Fernando Diaz asked a question at FDiazZZ35. Is there one thing Kurt was going to miss when he left WWE, and what was it at the time? One thing you would really miss?
The fans, the WWE universe. They're the most passionate fans in the world. And don't get me wrong, the TNA fans are great too. And there are a lot of ones that go back and forth. But for the most part, the WWE fans are the best in the world. They really are. That's what I miss the most.
I'm sure. Nothing like performing on a WrestleMania stage.
75,000 people.
My goodness.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Last question for this episode, Kurt, comes to us from Troy Almeida. And he says, hey, Kurt, do you ever think when you left WWE, you would try and recruit more WWE superstars to follow you over to TNA and try to make a stronger competition between WWE and TNA?
I never did because I had too much respect for Vince. But me leaving was an example. and a lot of others followed. A lot of others followed. I mean, you look at the talent that came in after me, and it was unbelievable. You know, I'm talking like Mr. Anderson, Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair.
Yeah, that's a who's who list of wrestlers right there.
There were a lot of upper tier guys that made it down the TNA after I got there. So I opened up a lot of doors for them.
Well, I tell you what, and for a long time, we've been looking for competition in wrestling again. We seem to have it now once again. There's now talent headed other places. AEW is on the rise and lots going on there. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan, isn't it, Kurt?
Absolutely is. It really is. And AEW is doing a great job. I'm still a WWE fan, always will be, but I'm always loyal to those guys. And it's because Vince never forgot about me.
There you go. And that's got to mean a lot. Yeah,
it does mean a lot.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.